Here now are today's top headlines in the Midday Report, coming to you live via satellite from the first global Filipino network.
Good afternoon, I'm David Celdran, and this is the Midday Report, live from Manila. The headlines. The mainstream faction of the Communist Party of the Philippines denies the defection of retired General Raymundo Jarque as the Vizconde murder trial enters its second day. And in Lahar land, residents continue to hang on to their homes despite imminent disaster. We begin our newscast with the reported defection of retired Army General Raymundo Jarque to the Communist New People's Army. The mainstream faction of the Communist Party of the Philippines has denied taking Jarque under its wing and said they would never do such a thing. Jarque used to head the government's counterinsurgency operations in Negros Island, but SKYcable sources in the underground movement branded Jarque as a human rights violator. They said the mention of his name alone strikes fear in the hearts of Negros residents. Jarque is known for waging an all-out campaign against communist rebels in Negros Occidental's so-called Chicks area. This area covers the towns of Candoni, Himamaylan, Kabangkalan, and Sipalay, all former strongholds of the NPA. Sources say Jarque led a relentless search and destroy campaign against the CPP in the 1980s. Jarque is said to have announced his defection during a press conference in the Visayas last week. Doubts are now being raised as to which faction of the CPP took in Jarque. The communist movement broke into at least 3 factions following differences on strategy and tactics 2 years ago. The Visayas-based NPA command is said to have once been headed by rebel leader Arturo Tabar, who was arrested and jailed a few years ago. Tabar is also said to be allied with Filemon Lagman, former head of the party's Manila Rizal command. The Tabar-Lagman faction is known to be against the mainstream communist movement, which is headed by CPP founding Chairman Jose Maria Sison. Meantime, here's late word. Former NDF leader Saturo Campos said any military officer's decision to abandon government will always be viewed positively by the CPP. But Ocampo adds Jarque must now show his sincerity in joining the movement, granting of course that he has defected to the CPP. The rejection by the mainstream left of Jarque's defection puts into question his motives for switching sides. Jarque claims to have been disillusioned by the system and said he would rather take to the hills and fight on the side of his former enemies. But Jarque was also implicated in several questionable actions, including an attempt to kill former special prosecutor and now Ombudsman Añano Desierto in 1993. The NBI said there was not enough evidence against Jarque to bring the case to court, but Jarque was charged anyway for using government funds to conduct surveillance on Desierto. Desierto was investigating Jarque on charges of having illegally confiscated valuables from a prominent Visayan businessman in 1992. Jarque belongs to the class of 1961 of the elite Philippine Military Academy. He counts among his classmates Defense Secretary Renato de Villa, former Senator Rodolfo Biazon, and Interior and Local Government's Undersecretary Alexander Aguirre. Jarque's own son, Jose Rene, is said to have graduated from the West Point in the United States. Jarque is a native of Negros Occidental, having been born in Isabela Town on April 19, 1938. He ended his 33-year career in the military on April 19, 1994, under the compulsory retirement program. The last time a high-profile defection of a military officer took place was in the 70s when then Lieutenant Victor Corpus joined the fledgling New People's Army. Former military men in government lost no time in reacting to Jarque's defection. Press Undersecretary and former General Honesto Isleta said he regrets Jarque's decision. Isleta said Jarque cannot correct one mistake with another. Former rightist rebel and now Senator Gringo Honasan meantime said Jarque's defection comes as no surprise. And here's official reaction from the armed forces. Chief Public Information Officer Proceso Maligalig says Jarque is a retired general and his actions are his own. Maligalig said the AFP leadership is now trying to get in touch with Jarque through former Senator Rodolfo Biazon, who was his classmate at the PMA. Maligalig adds they really don't know whether he did indeed defect. And in other news, the celebrated Vizconde case has finally gone to court, and the suspects got the chance to finally meet star witness Jessica Alfaro face to face. The Parañaque Regional Trial Court began hearings on the Vizconde Massacre yesterday afternoon. It was the first day of what Judge Amelita Tolentino promises to be a continuous trial. SKYcable's Kim Bernardo was there, and she filed this report.
It was everything the spectators hoped it would be. From the principal suspects in the Vizconde murder case, showbiz personalities, to an incumbent senator whose son is the principal suspect in the killings. But star witness Jessica Alfaro remained the main attraction of the day. It was the first time the accused stood eyeball to eyeball with the prosecution's main witness. Alfaro was asked to identify those she claimed took part in the killing. She identified 6, including Hubert Webb, but almost failed to identify Tony Boy Lejano, the only suspect who has so far not shown his face in public until now. It took her 3 times before she was able to identify Tony Boy Lejano, who kept changing his clothes to throw her off. And here, the defense says they managed to hit a score.
Those who believe otherwise are naturally protesting now. And of course, those who believe that he was innocent are cheering. 3 times she passed Tony Boy, kaharap-harapan, until that woman pointed at her.
But the prosecution panel dismissed the defense panel's allegations, saying these things mean little.
May talagang confusing situation yun, di ba? Kaya nga kahit na si Superman with his super eye, will take time to identify. The point is, na-identify, di ba? As you could see, there were so many people. In fact, that's just an accommodation. It's not supposed to be asked to mix with the crowd, the accused. They should be in one place. But despite that, she was able to identify.
Nothing much was resolved in the first day of trial of the Vizconde case, at least as far as hearings go. And if anything, both sides can expect a longer day ahead. Kim Bernardo, SKYcable News.
Yesterday's hearing was a battle of wits and tempers. Lawyers on both sides of the case lashed at each other at every opportunity, delaying proceedings at everyone's expense. There was even one point when lawyers argued which direction Jessica Alfaro should face while taking the witness stand. At this point, Judge Tolentino caused an uproar when she said it didn't matter because it was not a real court of justice anyway. What she really meant, though, was that it wasn't a real court sala. The hearings were held in the Municipal Council Session Hall, which was packed with spectators and media men. Defense lawyers tried to stop the prosecution from having Jessica Alfaro identify the suspects. The defense found this irregular since legal rules mandate that a witness must first make her testimony before pointing to the accused. This, they said, would lay the basis for the identification of the suspects. But the most controversial statement was allegedly made by Web counsel Mario Onquico. Prosecution lawyers claim they overheard Onquico tell Jessica that she might be kidnapped. Onquico denied making the statement. Coming up in our report, government begins a mass evacuation of Pampanga residents as survivors in Cabalanchan refuse to leave their homes. Welcome back to the Midday Report. The forced evacuations in the towns of Minalin, Santo Tomas, and parts of San Fernando is now ongoing. Officials said the evacuation is proceeding smoothly with little resistance from the residents. All available government vehicles and trucks in the Pampanga area are being channeled into these towns to assist in the evacuation. Minalin and Santo Tomas are believed to lie directly in the path of the next expected lahar flow. Some 17,000 residents will have to be evacuated from the 2 towns. As of last night, officials claim that around 70% of the evacuation has been completed. Temporary shelters in Magalang and Arayat in Pampanga have been offered to the evacuees, but most of them opted to rent their own place in Angeles City. While the evacuation in the potential danger areas is proceeding smoothly, some residents in the lahar-ravaged barangay of Cabalanchan stubbornly refuse to leave. Cabalanchan was buried by heavy lahar flows at the height of Typhoon Mameng the other weekend, leaving only rooftops and television antennas sticking out of the mud. Experts say the next lahar flow would certainly wipe Cabalanchan out of the map. Yet some of the residents refuse to leave for higher ground. SKYcable News visited Cabalanchan over the weekend for another look at the people who continue to cling to what is left of their homes despite the endless lahar that has hit Bacolor over the years. Here's Ed Lingao on assignment.
Arsenio Benco is 76 years old, and at that age, he can hardly imagine leaving everything he worked for all his life. It is for this reason that he refuses to leave the condemned barangay of Cabalancian in Bacolor, Pampanga. Mang Arsenio is a farmer, and to farmers, he says, the land is their life.
Ang gagandang panahon, baka kami lang ang mga lalaki, babalik kami rito.
Tapos,
Yung mga anak kong babae, kasama ang mga kapatid nandun.
babalik ko kayo rito.
Kung kami pong mga lalaki, kung meron kang pang magawa rito, ang bukid namin noon yun eh.
Anong balak niyo? Magtatayo kayo ulit dito ng bahay?
Ay, kahit na umagtubo lang, kung anong magawa namin na sa bukid, kung makakapagtarim kami ng gulay, kung ano, para meron kang paghanap buhay.
This is the dilemma facing the residents of Bacolor, Minalin, Santo Tomas, and parts of San Fernando, whether to stay and face the wrath of nature or to leave and face an uncertain future. These two Cabalancian residents typify the dilemma.
Balak ko bang umalis dito?
Talagang aalis kami rito.
Kami hindi kami alis dito. Dito pa rin kami.
Ako pa.
Dito pa rin kami. Oo, gagando.
Artemio Reyes wants to believe that the rains are over and it is time to rebuild.
Itong buwan na ito, hindi na masyadong maulan pa. November hanggang Mayo na gagawa kami ng mga barong-barong dito para yung buhay namin matuloy. Kung nasa resettlement ka, hindi ka naman makakapaggawa ng mga kakanin doon dahil masikip eh.
Besides, he says, if he survived the first lahar flow, he can survive the next.
Siguro kung yung mga mataas na yung mga 10 feet doon, siguro hindi na darating yung mga 10 feet na lahar dito. Siguro kung darating man yan, mga 2 feet o 3 feet na lang. Kaya mo lang iserba yung katawan.
But as always, the most basic reason is the fear of losing his home or what's left of it.
Pagka umalis ka rito, talagang yung balak nilang dito na lahat itatapon ng lahar. Kaya kami, mahal pa rin namin ang baryo namin. Kaya ayaw namin umalis dito.
Former Councilor Freddy Benco looks at things differently. He says moving out will not only save themselves, it will also save the next town. If Cabalancian is turned into a catch basin, then there may yet be hope for San Fernando.
Aalis kami rito dahil isi-save namin yung San Fernando. Kasi kung hindi isi-save yung San Fernando, wala nang paggagawa na namin ito. Kung anong gusto nilang gawin. Yung ginagawa ng resettlement, pera na lang ibibigay nila sa barangay para yung mga tao magano na ng kanilang buhay. Ayaw namin dinasan nila yung dinasan namin.
The government-sponsored evacuation has already begun in several towns and barangays. And again, government faces